While some of us might be thrilled when we're able to take off our masks and not have to socially distance, some of us are actually scared. So here with us now, we have psychologist Dr. Jay Ham. Hey, great to see you.
Nice to be here.
Okay, so I'm hearing around anecdotally this thing called sort of post-pandemic anxiety, and I'm thinking it has to do with us being concerned about changes. I mean, masks have been something like we put on our socks every day. So what are your thoughts about this?
Well, I think that this has all been a lot of adjustments for all of us. We've collectively gone through a very high stress experience over the last year or so. And this next phase in it will be another set of adjustments that we all have to make. But of course, we've all experienced it in different ways. And so, as you say, some people may be approaching this phase in a very different state of mind than others.
Mhm. For those who are in a state of mind, Dr. Ham, of having this sort of being maybe scared of what's going to happen, and they've sort of had this habit. I mean, I don't know how long does it take to have a habit. I mean, probably a year is a long enough time to establish one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it may depend on a lot of things, how prone people are to getting anxious when they experience some life adjustment, what their particular thoughts were about masks, and, how much comfort they may have given them or not. Um, I think that we should all just probably try to, take it easy on ourselves and on others as we, maybe are experiencing some discomfort. I would worry a little bit about, pathologizing people feeling more stress or anxiety during another time of uncertainty and change. So, I would think that after, especially for people who have really been quite adherent to the mask protocols and have found some sense of security from wearing them. If you're starting to feel anxious as you transition out of it, then that seems like a normal expected response to me.
That's a really interesting point because, right, we had this profound change that we needed to make, and now we're sort of coming out of this profound change, but things are sort of lingering and having to sort of take your time, and everybody's sort of different in that way. And the same thing could also apply to wanting to stand 6 feet away from people or walk up the sidewalk or stay away when someone's in an aisle of the grocery store.
Sure. Yeah, and with something like that, all of us had different sort of comfort levels with personal space and how comfortable we were in large social situations beforehand. So, it may be that for some people who were already maybe preferred a little bit more physical space from someone, or maybe didn't feel so comfortable in large groups, maybe especially a big adjustment to try to get back into the swing of those sorts of things.
And I mean, I hope for the sake of, gosh, the world, that we can come back to some, this place of which everybody is safe and vaccinated should they decide to be vaccinated. However, some are fearful that this could be around forever, perpetually, and taking off the mask is fear of infection and all of these things. So again, all these things are contributing. People are different, but what about those who have this sort of sense of this could be around, and I don't want to not do these behaviors. I want to keep them up.
Well, I suppose that's an individual choice. I think that if the last year has taught us anything, is that none of us can really predict very far into the future. And so we probably need to do what is, healthy and best for us in the moment. And it may be that as things transition out and there are no longer recommendations to wear masks, that some people just maybe feel more comfortable wearing masks in public. That's not been, very common in our, our U.S. culture, but it's not the most unusual thing in the world. So, it may be that some people just prefer to wear masks moving forward when they go out in public. We'll see.
That's a really interesting point that you make. Sometimes it's kind of a cultural thing. It's never really been at least in our culture before, at least what I understand. But for other cultures, it's actually been sort of kind of normal. I'm saying normal, but yes, they're in a way in which they behave during certain times. And there's also been sort of, I mean, there's when we have anxiety running through our body, we know that we have these stressful hormones going on. So I really like what you said in terms of take your time, or if you just prefer to keep the ways in which that you are behaving and keep up these behaviors, then that's your choice. And you have that freedom to do so, of course. So if you could give a message to these people who might be fearful of maybe being judged by thinking
Sure.
that they are kind of, this is over, what's going on, which we know it's not over yet. But anyway, what would you tell them for fear of being judged, let's say?
Well, that's a tough thing that I suppose that we all deal with in lots of different ways in our lives. But right now the recommendations are to wear masks. Here in our clinic, we're wearing masks every day, even though all of us are vaccinated. At some point, that probably won't be the recommendation. But if somebody wants to keep wearing a mask, I guess my thought is that that will harm absolutely no people. You can't control what other people think of that. And so we all have to navigate those social situations. And if we're making a choice that feels safer to us, and other people judge us for it, then we sort of have to, come to terms with that and try to be fair with each other.
And what about work has changed dramatically the way in which people work remotely, and some are saying, I just like my lifestyle so much better. I don't have to have this three-hour commute every day. I'm sort of anxious about these other things that will potentially go back to in which the way they were. What would you say to someone who has now maybe reached a life that they have prefer, but are now going to have to perhaps maybe change back into those situations?
Yeah, I mean, I guess everyone is in different situations. I was certainly happy to, after a few months being at home, to get back into the office here, even if it did require some adjustments with how things went here. Some people have been very comfortable wearing sweatpants for a year and are horrified by the idea of putting jeans back on. But I think everyone just needs to kind of think through what their situation is. Communicate with the people that they're around, their family and loved ones, and try to figure out how to move forward.
Right. That's so interesting because, right, we don't know if things are going to be exactly the way they were before. I mean, right. I mean, this overused phrase, but I guess there's no other way to put it, this sort of new normal thing. So talking to people and I guess understanding what things we might be able to keep, the good things, and maybe that would be really beneficial to some of our lives when this is over. But anything else you'd like to add about this sort of maybe post-pandemic anxiety, of which is sort of circulating around that? At least that's the phrase that I'm hearing.
Yeah. Well, I guess, I think post-pandemic in general sounds good. I don't think that we're quite there yet. And so hopefully everyone can just hang in there a little bit longer, follow the recommendations to keep themselves and each other safe. And then as we move out of it, if people get stressed, they get stressed. There is a big difference between situational stress and anxiety that is a normal and expected part of life and is something that helps us, recognize that we're under pressure or recognize that we're uncomfortable with something. There's a big difference from that and having some kind of disabling mental health condition. And so we do want to be careful to not pathologize ourselves or other people. Just because we are going through a change in life and it comes with expected stress.
Right, right. No, that's a great point because I mean, stress is a normal thing, but anxiety can be something completely different. I mean, it's a diagnosable disorder, which people might feel uncomfortable or stressed at times and having anxiety, but we don't need to go that far and sort of, having those two terms be the same thing because they're not.
Sure, and if it's there's not a clear line between those, and so if people are really struggling and it's starting to interfere with relationships or with work function or with eating or sleeping, talking to a mental health professional is a good place to start. But I think all that said, we want to find things that support us through hard times. But what we don't want to do is make things worse by, diagnosing ourselves with something that is really part of normal life.
Mhm. Wow, that's so interesting. Thank you so much, Dr. Ham. Really appreciate it.
Great. Yeah, thanks for